Sharing the screen, sharing the presentation also. I hope you can all see it now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. That's right. Thank you, beta. Thank you, Krishna. You must give me these inputs when and how there is a problem.
Right, sir.
Right, sir. Now, what I'm going to talk about is the experiential learning, or we call it the model of experiential learning. And it basically deals with the most important aspect is how people learn and how do we also learn. When we talk of people, it means both teachers and students and even elders. Let's move ahead. If I look at teaching, which you all know, does teaching involve presenting information, which we have been doing, stuffing information into these young little minds? Does that mean teaching? Or does teaching mean that learning must happen? Because there is a doubt with many people that I kept on talking, I kept on explaining, I did all that it was possible for me, but the children have not learned. There's something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with the children. There's nothing wrong with you, nothing wrong with anything except the strategy and the methodology. If you know what learning is, then you can automatically change your teaching methodology to ensure that learning happens. A great teacher facilitates learning. How does he facilitate learning? There's a black spot here, which is point A. We have to carry our child to point B. And the path is not so easy. It's quite circuitous. It's quite difficult. We will have to come across certain obstacles. Actually, removing these obstacles is known as facilitation. That's why we call a teacher a facilitator, because he removes the obstacles that come in the path of learning of a child, and whatever skills, whatever information or behaviors you want to pass on to your children, the end result should be that they have received that. If the end result is that they have learned that behavior, which is the most important word now, they have received that or learned that skill, they are able to show that information or display that information in their behavior, then automatically they have learned. I wish each one of you to own such a beautiful car. As teachers, you have, if you own this car, well, then you have a chance, an opportunity of driving yourself in this car right up to the school. Maybe some of you fall in love with this car so much that you build a garage for it, clean it every day, keep it in the garage and never use it. That's what's happening in teaching also. The vehicle is the strategy. The vehicle is the methodology. You all were taught about these methods of teaching, maxims of teaching, rules of teaching, theories of teaching. You read them all, but then you left it as soon as the B.Ed or the M.Ed classes were over, and you decided to use your own vehicle. And over a period of time, say for 10, 12 years, because you have been traveling in this vehicle, your journey has become so convenient now. To me, it looks like this. Our teachers still using a methodology which is outdated. I mean, this horse-driven carriage or a horse-drawn wagon is not very much in use now, except for a joyride somewhere in Paris or sometimes in the streets of London. The students usually represent the horses. We encourage them, we threaten them, we beg of them, and we want them to go where they do not have any experience of ever having gone. They have never learned the way we teach them. As a result, our strategies, which are old and hackneyed, which are traditional, which did their job once upon a time when the focus was on information, when the focus was on passivity of knowledge, when the focus was on only transmission of culture, they did their job, but now they don't. Now, this is something that you must remember. The neurons in the brain need to be fired. These neurons must send electronic signals from here to here, from here to here. The electronic signals, the connectivity which happens through a synapse, this connectivity must get fired. What happens? When I teach in a class, it happens to the tune of say 20 to 30%, but the net result is that it must happen to the tune of 90, 95%. What makes it happen to the tune of 95% is when a child does something with his own hands. When a child is passing through an experience, the experience stimulates his brain and the neuron firing takes place from one neuron to another. The connections are built up, and when the connections are built up, learning happens. This is a quote from J.W. Wilson, and I read it only about 6 months back. The name of the book is Cracking the Learning Code. Any one of you can purchase the book and understand what learning is and how you can make it easier for both yourself and for your children to learn. There is another revelation which comes to us from Howard Gardner, the man who gave us the theory of multiple intelligences. He says that there are certain research documents which have come to us about certain students who were trained very well in the schools. They showed external signs of success because they got very good test scores. They got very good grades. Their attendance was very good in good schools. They won the praise of their teachers. But what happened to these children in life? They did not show adequate understanding of the concepts and the materials that had been taught to them in this school. This is a quote from A.G. Gardner, and I wish I would have asked him this question last time, but I couldn't. The number of people attending his meeting at Delhi was more than 3,400. And everybody had his hand raised, including mine. So how many of us would get an opportunity? My question would have been, sir, why does it happen? And then I read his books. I studied them thoroughly. I studied his 7 intelligences and then the other ideas that he had. I realized what he wanted to say was, passing examinations, getting good test scores, getting good grades is one thing. It's not learning. It is storing information for a period of time in your brain, vomiting it out in the examination. And occasionally you may require some of this information in life. You can retrieve it, you may not retrieve it. Success in life is determined by your ability to solve your problems, by your ability to think critically, by your ability to think creatively, which is the most important skill in the 21st century. Therefore, there is need for changing the paradigm. The situation that is established as on today of driving the horses, persuading them, imploring them, reinforcing them, and sometimes even threatening them, is not going to happen. We have to change the vehicle. That means we have to change the strategy of teaching. The key of this strategy, the key of this vehicle has not to be with us, it has to be with the children. So the students should have the flexibility of choosing the methodology and the experience. And then the road on which these students are carried and they travel, that road has to be a safe road. So it's not only the methodology that we choose, it's not only the experience that we provide to our students, but the opportunity that we give them for hands-on learning, the experiences have to be very safe. What then is experiential learning? It's not discovery learning. Why is it not discovery learning? Because discovery learning is unstructured. Discovery learning has no structure. The child is let loose and he discovers something on his own. He is working on something and he finds something else. He is working on a concept A and suddenly he finds a relationship between concept B and C. Well, that's discovery learning. This is not discovery learning. What happens in experiential learning? The teacher chooses an activity which is relevant to the content or the topic that he is going to choose, and he explains that activity, he defines that activity. Please understand that's the first step. Your content is your jurisdiction, but from the content, you choose to explain that content, you choose an activity which is relevant to the content. And then you provide that experience which you have chosen. You provide that to the children so the students get involved. Students get involved physically in that experience now, while as the teacher is focusing on classroom management, discipline, he is focusing on helping, standing there by the side. He is focusing on ensuring that all children are engaged, all children are interacting, all children are undergoing the experience, and even children are reflecting on the experience. He only ensures that there is a safe environment, and if there are questions, he keeps on answering them. And sometimes he asks a question so that children can reflect along with the experience on the question also. You might have heard what Einstein once said. He said, knowledge is experience, everything else is information. Well, that should tell you the importance of experience and therefore the importance of experiential learning. According to Einstein, everything else is information and real knowledge is what you experience in life. One must learn, this is Sophocles, a Greek poet of it, tragedian who wrote wonderful tragedies even before Shakespeare was born. One must learn by doing the thing. Though you think you know it, you have no certainty unless you try. You may have read a subject, you may have mastered it, you may have understood a concept, you may have been taught it by, you may have been taught this concept by one of the best teachers, and you may think that you know it, but I'm sorry, you will not really know it unless you experience it. When you experience it, well, then your knowledge becomes permanent. These are some people whom I would introduce to you. John Dewey, you already know, the American educational psychologist, who said, reconstruction and reorganization of life, human life, is experience. Or he said, reconstruction and reorganization of human experience is education. And I replied to him, sir, education is life. We have Kurt Lewin, another psychologist who gave us the philosophy of problem-solving learning, a man who believed in vectors. He believed that there can be goals with positive and negative valencies, and one is drawn towards something that has a positive attraction and possibly learns it faster. Eugene Piaget, my blessed be he is my guru, the man who gave us the cognitive theory of psychology. Cognitive theory of psychology is theory based on where from knowledge comes. Episteme of knowledge. We call it the branch of philosophy known as epistemology. That is the theory of knowledge. And according to him, human intellectual development is divided into 4 stages. The stage from 0 age to 2.5, from 2.5 to 5, from 5 to 11, and 11 onwards, because by 16 your IQ is fixed. And he gives a proper name to these stages known as cognitive stages of intellectual development. So he came with the field theory or the cognitive theory of learning. Then we have David Coe, wonderful gentleman, who gave us this theory of experiential learning. He combined what Dewey had said. He was greatly influenced by Dewey's saying that all education is basically experience. All life is reconstructing that experience. He was influenced by Kurt Lewin, positivity. He was influenced by Jean Piaget, that learning happens when you look at it holistically. You do not look at it atomistically. And then Phil Reyes, who joined him in developing this theory and working with him. Just by the way, the names. Experiential learning takes place when a person is involved in an activity and then he looks back. Involving in the activity does not lead to experiential learning. He looks back upon that activity, he evaluates that activity and tries to find out what was useful, what was important, which he should remember. And whatever he finds was important in terms of information, was useful, he uses that to perform another activity. Now, this is the part where many of my friends who have been talking about experiential learning, many authorities have failed to understand. What is it? Not that I have succeeded, I might have also failed somewhere else. That once you provide an experience to a child, that's not the end of it. After the experience, the child should get a safe place, a safe environment to reflect on the experience. When he starts reflecting, that's looking back on the experience that he had, he evaluates the experience and he decides as to what was important. So he theorizes, he develops certain abstract concepts, and then the third stage comes in where he goes and applies his theory in another activity. This becomes the cycle of learning. I think in one of my talks I did mention this, but that time it was in a different order. When we talk of retaining information in the brain, if you lecture at me, I will retain only 5% of the information, 95% I will lose. If you read it from a book or I read it from a book, I will be able to retain 10% of the information. If you show me pictures which are very attractive, if you show me videos, audios, you use them, if you carry me out and show me certain situations, I will gain about 20% of the knowledge, because now I am seeing it using the sense of sight, and I am listening to it using my ears, sense of hearing. But if you present a demonstration in front of me, a scientific experiment is demonstrated, a mathematical explanation is demonstrated in front of me with the help of certain teaching aids, then the chances are that I may retain this information to the tune of 30%, even though you have done your best to give me 100%. If you give us, the children, an opportunity of discussing it in small groups or large groups, we will be able to retain 50% of what you wanted us to learn in our minds. If you give us an opportunity of doing it with our own hands, see, when a physics teacher carries his class, he provides equipment on every table and he gives the topic to the children. He tells them, I have provided you each with a lens. I want you to find out its focal length. I demonstrated it once, now do it. He performs an experiment of resonance, or he performs an experiment on a Wheatstone bridge. When a teacher gives this kind of an experience to the children are doing it on their own, using their own hands. The chances are that their attention will be to the tune of 75%. And if the child now teaches this very information to another child, or he teaches it to a friend, he teaches it to a peer in the class, the chances of his retaining information can go up to 90. In my case, it goes up to 95. Now, I'm taking you back to those early classes of your B.Ed for 5 minutes only. The visit will be a very short one. I think you have heard of the behavioristic psychologists, the people who used to tell us that there's a stimuli and there's a response, and then they added that there's a stimuli, the organism in between is me, and then there's a response, and this leads to learning. The SR theorists. And the basic name among those SR theorists was the name of a psychologist called Pavlov. What do they believe? That behavior can be conditioned. If you present a stimuli and attach another stimuli also to the behavior, over a period of time, the second stimuli, which was not the original stimuli, becomes a stimuli for leading to a response. And you are remembering the experiments that they performed. For example, Pavlov performed the experiment on the dog, where whenever food was brought for this dog, his mouth used to salivate, and the amount of saliva was even calculated or seen. What they did, now whenever food was brought to the dog, a bell was also rung along with it. So the dog could see two stimuli, the ringing of the bell and the food. The food brought the saliva, but the bell continued. Over a period of time, it continued, and then after some time, the food was not brought to the dog, only the bell was rung. His mouth salivated. So he had been conditioned to give us a response of salivation only on the ringing of the bell, which normally should have happened only when the food was provided. There was another psychologist who came after Pavlov, and his name was B.F. Skinner. You know, the great man who said, give me a child and tell me what you want to make of him, I'll make him. He was a psychologist who believed in successive approximation. He believed in shaping of behavior. He believed in reward and reinforcement, the theory of reinforcement, that positive reinforcement, encouraging a child, taking up the answers correct, giving him stars, or saying good, saying wonderful, saying excellent. He believed that this would cause learning to stay permanently in his mind. And with the help of shaping, here you see in this experiment, a rat, when he presses a particular lever, a pellet of food drops down on him. But that pellet of food drops only when he presses a particular lever of a particular color. Over a period of time, he learns to press that lever only whenever he needs food. So he has been conditioned to that kind of lever. We call the first theory Pavlovian classical conditioning theory of learning. The second we call as B.F. Skinner's instrumental conditioning theory of learning. Now let's move out of this conditioning theory and talk of the cognitive theory. The cognitive theory believes that when a stimuli is given, the brain responds to it as a whole. It does not respond in small behaviors. Behaviors are atomistic. It's not one behavior at a time. The brain judges the whole situation, the entire situation, and thus responds to it. So they said that learning is basically a mental process, and the person, the individual, the organism takes time to store information, to bring back information, to interpret information, because all this is happening in the brain. And this acquisition of problem-solving ability happens only in the brain when he is able to build up relationships. Relationships between concepts, between facts, between principles. This experiment is very well known to you. An experiment performed by two psychologists, Kohler and Kafka. These are two different diagrams. The chimpanzee was put in a cage, and from the top of the cage hung a banana. The banana is hanging here outside in nature. So go to the left-hand picture. The banana hung from the top, and there were two hollow tubes or hollow rods lying there. The chimpanzee, the ape, tried to use one of them. It fell short. Used another. It fell very short. And then he thought of, for over some time, he was trying to visualize the whole situation over a period of time. He decided that one of them was fitting into the other, and the rod was becoming bigger. When the smaller diameter, the rod of the smaller diameter was fitted into the rod of the bigger diameter, he had a bigger rod. He could pull down the banana. This was an experience. And the same ape, when released, he taught others how to bring down a banana from a height where he could not reach. So he was using this knowledge in another situation which was earlier unfamiliar to him, but now had become familiar. This experiment tells us that behavior is not atomistic. You have to look at the whole situation. You have to look at your surrounding, visualize the whole situation, and then solve the problem. I'm coming to the most easy part of it, which people regard as the most difficult, but for us it's going to be very easy. What is the theory of experiential learning? It starts with provide the child with a concrete. I hope you understand what is concrete. Not an experience given in words, not an experience in the form of a story, not an experience which is virtual, but an experience which is real, where the child handles objects, where the child works with things, where the child does not only involve all his senses, but involves all his kinesthetic motor muscles also. Give the child a concrete experience, let him do something. Well, that's the first step. But this experience, please remember, has to be related to your topic. There can be topics where you cannot provide an experience. For example, I was teaching long back, this is about 30 years back, I was teaching the structure of atom. And I was talking of the Rutherford's model of bombarding a gold file with neurons. And the child asked me, sir, why can't we do this experiment? I had to tell him that for doing this experiment and providing the experience to you, I need to buy a gold file first. That will take me my whole lifetimes of saving. For that, you have to give me another 30 years. Then I need to look for a cyclotron machine which generates neutrons. And if I go for looking for it, they will catch hold of me and subject me to an inquiry and sentence me to prison, thinking that I am interested in making an atomic bomb because that's the machine that's used for developing that. So concrete experiences in certain lessons are possible. In some lessons, they are not. But when two heads, which I think two fools even are better than a wise man, if two teachers teaching the same subject join hands together, the possibility is that experiences can be found in most of the topics, in most of the subjects. So give the child an experience. Then after he has spent some time on the experience, let him come back to the class now. He may have worked on this experience individually, or he may have worked on this experience in a group. Now let him join his friends and reflect on the experience. Let him observe what was the experience. What did I learn from it? Review what I learned. This is reflective observation, RO we call it. He is now thinking about the experience and observing what I learned from the experience himself. This activity is to be guided by providing the children a very safe and a very comfortable environment, and the teacher may ask questions. How did you like the experience? What did you enjoy? What concepts were involved? What did you find that was new that you had not earlier seen? What did you learn? Draw your own conclusions, write 2 or 3 conclusions on the notebook. That's how you help them. The child has to reflect, because any experience in life does not give us knowledge unless we reflect on that. After you have done the reflection, now you come to the third stage. You form certain concepts. They are not concrete concepts. They are not concepts that have been verified. They are only, I would say, assumptions. They are hypotheses. Maximum, if you are a brilliant child, they can be theories. They have not been as yet tested in the crucible of a lab. They have not been universally verified. If they would have been universally verified, they would become a law. So your conceptualization as a child is still abstract. You are concluding, you are learning from the experience, you are theorizing from the experience. So the experience had led to observation. The observation has helped you to theorize and believe in certain things. Now the teacher says, all right, you had an experience, you reflected on that experience, you summed up what you learned from it, and you made certain abstract conceptualization of it. Now go and try it out. Whatever you have learned, plan another experience, another active experimentation now, and whatever you have learned, you should try that. Please remember that reflection in a holistic learning process is very important, because when you are doing these stages, to me, they look like 4 stages. To you, they may be 4 parts of this sequence. They are 4 steps of helping, but they happen simultaneously. While you are doing the experience, you are reflecting, you are making abstractions, and you are thinking of what you will do at the next stage. It's all happening holistically, and for our purpose of explanation, we do break it up. CE, concrete experience, reflective observation, RO, AC, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation, AE. This is how the model was given. What did David Cope say? I have used his very words from his books. Experiential learning tries to integrate both cognitive theory and behavioral theory. That was the reason I gave a reference to those theories. It believes in stimulus response learning as well as holistic learning. And when they are combined together, it develops a new model of learning by doing. You can call it learning by doing, but if I take it a step further and make you reflect upon that learning, make you develop abstractions on that learning, it becomes the experiential learning model. And here the learners, they are enabled to gain experiences which they can apply in learning of new concepts. So it starts with an experience, moves over to the right to critical reflection on that experience, then goes down on the right to abstract conceptualization, and then moves back left to active experimentation. You will say, sir, why have you put these arrows and they go both ways? Can critical reflection lead to experience? Can abstract conceptualization lead to critical reflection? Can active experimentation lead to experience? Yes, because I said it's all happening at one and the same time in the brain of the child. It's for me and for you to simplify things and provide them one at a time. Let the child have the experience. Now the second stage begins. Let him reflect. Let him think about it. Let him ruminate over it. Third, let him draw the points as abstract learnings. Fourth, let him now experiment on those. What is learning? Here, learning is conceived as a process. In the behavioristic school of thought, we view learning only as an outcome. We view learning as only a behavioral change, a behavioral modification. But he says, no, learning is a process which keeps on continuously going. And it's a continuous process. The basis of this process is the experience. It's grounded in experience. And it's a process which is holistic. I mean, where you view the whole, not the parts. And you adapt yourself to the world. You adjust yourself to the world. That's where your intelligence develops. You either change yourself for the world, or you change the situations and the environment so that they suit you. And this learning always involves 2 things. It involves person, the learner, and the environment with which he is interacting. because the environment provides all kinds of experiences. And the environment is not only the physical environment, the environment can be the social environment. We learn a lot of things by sitting with our relatives, by enjoying a marriage function, by attending to a cremation. I mean, these are social gatherings where interactions happen with people. Either the person interacts with the environment, which can be physical, which can be emotional, which can be social. I move further. I give a definition to this, which can be understood by this child even. I say it's a broad category of all those methods which you use for teaching, where the learner is always involved. So any method in which you engage your child, the child is engaged in activity, the child is involved in the process of learning, such a method is an experiential learning method, because the children are always given an opportunity to learn using that experience as the basis for learning. There has been a question once, and I had to add this slide, although the picture does not correspond to the slide. Was somebody who asked me, why do we use experiential learning? I told him, sir, if you want to have a variety in your learning environment, students must get an opportunity of visually looking at things, touching them. The things should be concrete and tangible, and the corresponding principle will be developed automatically. Because our learners learn best when they see things with their eyes, when they touch things with their own hands, and when they experience things. That's why experiential learning is to be provided. All experiential learning activities are such that they give the children a wider understanding, a broader understanding of all the concepts related in the physical environment. Try it out. Take your children out in the playfield and talk to them about the sky, about the nimbus and the cirrus clouds, about the solids of the moon, about the phases of the moon, anything that you like. You will find that your lesson had become a permanent lesson because the children could see it, experience it themselves. I give you a video here if it plays. I'm not sure about it. It should play. My son, there seems to be some problem again. I tried it in the morning before coming to this situation. Let me see if I can. Krishnan, are you here? I'm using the
Yes, sir.
video
Yes, sir.
original,
Yes,
not
sir.
the
Yes,
embedded
sir.
video. I'm using the video, original video now, beta.
Right, sir.
This is the video. I have to share.
It's not showing to us.
It will not be showing to you. I have to stop sharing and then share it. No?
Right, sir.
Is it showing to you now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's showing.
But you can't hear.
No, sir. No, sir.
That's natural. You can't hear anything. Let me see what I can do. I will have to stop sharing again. I will have to go back to the video. I will have to stop sharing, but I didn't do that. I have a slight problem, and I think I'll use a mouse now and not use my fingers. The video is here. Let me go for sharing now. Are you able to see this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you hear the sound?
No, sir. No, sir.
I don't know why that's happening.
Can I see with the any desk?
Can you help me, my son?
Yes, sir.
I have tried. Look here, I'm sharing the screen, and after sharing the screen, I'm going to the video. But no, that doesn't get shared like this. No, that doesn't get shared like this.
And it won't be shared anyhow.
Can you please give the access for the any desk?
I'm giving you. I'm giving you within a minute. it will
Right.
not take us much time.
Right.
But then how do I do that here? And then, come on, write the number, beta.
Yes, sir. Please.
I think you must write it once for all.
Right, sir.
The number is 149
149
916
763.
763. Absolutely right. So it's already stored with you.
Yes, sir. सर शेयरिंग बंद करिए, क्योंकि शेयरिंग के टाइम पे वो नहीं एक्सेप्ट नहीं कर रहा है.
शेयरिंग तो बंद था बेटा. जस्ट अ मिनट. लेट मी सी. मैंने शेयरिंग करा है? नहीं बेटा, शेयरिंग तो बंद है.
मे बी आपका इंटरनेट तो बंद तो नहीं हुआ एनी डेस्क, क्योंकि यहाँ पे ऑफलाइन दिखाने लगा एनी डेस्क आपका.
शेयरिंग तो मैंने बंद किया था.
नहीं सर, एनी डेस्क बंद तो नहीं हो गया है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे ऑफलाइन दिखा रहा है.
नहीं बेटा, ऑनलाइन है, ऑफलाइन तो दिखाएगा ही नहीं. आई एम कनेक्टेड. आई कैन सी माई सेल्फ. आई एम टॉकिंग. My lips are moving. Everything is
No,
functioning.
not there, sir. On any desk. Any desk, I think any desk is closed.
Acha, I had to. Oh, I'm sorry. I had to accept that. Oh yes. I had to accept that. I didn't, because once you would ask for connectivity.
Right, sir.
Connect मुझे remote desk से मांगना था. Connect तो मैं कर रहा हूँ.
नहीं सर, आपको
Invitation
कनेक्ट नहीं सर, आपको नहीं कनेक्ट करना है. कनेक्ट मैं करूंगा.
हाँ,
सिर्फ
करो.
आपको एक्सेप्ट करना है, वो मैं कर रहा हूँ सर. आप एक्सेप्ट करिए. राइट सर.
Accept करा
राइट
बेटा.
सर. तो माउस छोड़ दीजिए प्लीज. राइट. कौन सी वाली वीडियो करनी है सर?
यही वाला है. You are right.
राइट.
अब शेयर करना है. कोई वरी नहीं, इसको बंद कर दूंगा मैं.
एक सेकंड, मैं शेयरिंग कर रहा हूँ.
आगे भी जाए तो क्या प्रॉब्लम है? ये सारा मैंने बिल्कुल यही स्टेप्स मैंने किए. देखिए, शेयर ऑन कंप्यूटर साउंड भी था. पता नहीं क्या हो रहा है. नाउ यू शेयर. साउंड नहीं आ रहा फिर भी?
नहीं तो साउंड नहीं आ रहा है.
Any reason for that you visualize?
एक सेकंड तक ऐसे भी साउंड आ रहा है, आपकी साइड में साउंड नहीं आ रहा है.
Sound has come now.
अब now
is there.
it's working.
Teaching and learning how to.
Beginning में साउंड नहीं था
The
शायद.
experiential learning model.
No, it's okay.
Let me take it to the
Aristotle
beginning.
said this is a Humber Center for Teaching and Learning how to. The experiential learning model. Aristotle said that for the things we have to learn before we can do them, we learn by doing them. It was true then and is true now. Experiential learning, put simply, is learning by doing. Following the experiential learning model when designing instruction can help maximize our learners' understanding of important concepts. The experiential learning model consists of first doing, then reflecting on it, then applying what was learned to another situation. Then we repeat the cycle, each time adding difficulty or refining our skills. The experiential learning model consists of a 5-step cycle. Here it is right here. Step 1. Experience. Experience the activity. This is learning by doing, after all. Have your learner perform a task. Step 2. Share. Share the results. Describe the experience. Get your learners thinking about and talking about the results, the reactions, and sharing this publicly. Step 3. Process. This is where you examine how the learning process works. Have your learners examine and discuss and analyze the experience, and then reflect on it. Step 4. Generalize. Your learners need to be able to connect this experience to other real-world examples. Step 5. Apply. Now your learners should be able to take what they learned from this experience and apply it to a similar or different situation. And when we apply something to a new situation, we get to experience the activity all over again. We find ourselves back at step 1, and the experiential learning cycle repeats itself. Experience, share, process, generalize, apply. It really works. Try it today. Get your learners doing, reflecting, applying, and then doing again. Thanks, and if you'd like to learn more, stop by Humber Center for Teaching and Learning.
Thank you, Krishna. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
We went through this part of it. I will have to go back. Yes. I would now take you to 9 basic keys. We call them 9 keys to experiential learning. The first is, please balance the content and the process. The experience has to be integrated with the learning theory or the learning concept. The experience cannot be different or far-fetched. It has to be very close to the concept that you want to teach. That's the first key. The content and the process of teaching have to be correlated. The experience has to come out from the content itself. Number 2, once the children have passed through that experience, you need to provide them an opportunity to reflect. Give them time to reflect. Give them time to think. And this time has to be given to them in an environment which is very safe. Here the children feel very safe. They have had an experience and now they are discussing among themselves. Even junior children, it's very important for the senior classes. The third is, make this experience meaningful. If you want to, I'll try this if it works. I don't think.
Hello and
what happened?
short module on making learning meaningful for children. In this module, you'll gain new knowledge and skills, and you'll hear about the ways that teachers plan activities and interactions that support children's understanding of the world around them. Making learning meaningful fits into the foundation of our house. The house framework helps us think about, plan for, and use teaching practices that are important for achieving school readiness for all children. Engaging environments and interactions are the foundation of the house. These are critical for children's social and academic development. The foundation has 3 parts: social and emotional support, well-organized classrooms, and instructional interactions. This module on making learning meaningful fits into the foundation, and more specifically, it describes strategies for making instructional interactions more effective and engaging. Teachers make learning meaningful and significant in a variety of ways. In this module, we talk about 3 strategies that teachers can use. They can link or connect new learning to children's previous experience, relate concepts to children's lives, provide children with hands-on learning. Let's find out a bit more about each of these strategies. One strategy to use to make learning meaningful for children is to link new learning to children's previous experience.
What kind of boat is this one here? Sailboat. Remember we talked about fun boats and work boats? Okay, this is a sailboat. Would that be a fun boat or a working boat? It's a fun boat.
Help the children make the connections. Here's how. The teacher intentionally links new concepts or skills to previous discussions, learning activities, or events. The teacher alerts children to these connections. She might say, "Remember when?" or "Yesterday," or she might ask, "What does this remind you of?"
Do you remember when we walked over to the big field that way? Do you remember? We walked south and there was a big pond. Let's listen and see what we can learn today about ponds.
Another way that teachers make learning meaningful is by relating concepts to children's lives and taking advantage of materials and activities that are familiar to children. For example, teachers include props in the dramatic play area that children recognize. And teachers select storybooks that contain familiar themes. Teachers also plan lessons and projects that take advantage of events and activities that spark children's interests. In this example, the teacher knows that there is a large construction project in the neighborhood. The teacher adds construction vehicles to the block area and puts construction books in the book area and plans activities around key vocabulary and concepts. A third strategy to make learning meaningful is to provide hands-on learning. Instead of just talking about or demonstrating a new concept, the teacher plans activities that allow children to touch, manipulate, or experience the concept in a real way. For example, the children might be learning about spatial concepts, such as in front of, behind, or next to. Here are some of the ways that children can experience those concepts in a hands-on way.
Can you put it far away from Sarah? Far. Far. Very good. Now can you bring it close to teacher, near teacher? Thank you very much.
You did it! You did it! Look, you can go home and tell your mom and say, today I walked through a cylinder.
Teachers use these strategies and others to make learning meaningful to children and to encourage their thinking and understanding. These strategies can be used throughout the school day and in a variety of activities. Children, just like the rest of us, learn better when the content is meaningful to them. By selecting materials, creating learning experiences, making comments, and asking questions, teachers help children make the connections. This module highlighted the ways that teachers make learning meaningful to children. Teachers connect new learning to children's prior knowledge, to familiar home, school, and community experiences, and then let children truly interact and participate in their learning. Check out our tips for teachers and
that was the third point. I'll go back because the video sometimes. Number one is that we have to balance the content and the process. Can you hear me? Krishnan, my voice is clear?
Yes, yes, sir.
That's right. Thank you, Vita. Thank you. Number two, we want to provide the children with a safe environment where they can reflect on the experience. And third is, the experience should be meaningful to them. The participants engaged in that activity, it has to be meaningful to all of them because it has to be correlated with the concept or with life or linked with previous experience. Now, experiential learning should have a bigger perspective. The verticality, that is the truth, the real value of a thing. I mean, make it look real. Do not create abstract, artificial experiences. Our grandmothers were very good at giving us stories, but the stories were of an unreal world. They were stories of ghosts, princesses, and genies. So naturally, we did not gain much except vocabulary and fascination. Now, the experience that you provide cannot be virtual. It has to be real. The verticality is the truth of that has to stand. The key value of every experience should be its truth. Then, please build upon the reflection of the children. After the experience, students are required to reflect. They are required to go back to the experience, think about it, and incorporate and create and develop a theory of their own life. Then finally, there has to be an emotional connect. Unless they get emotionally interested in the activity, they will not get inspired, and you will not be able to fire their curiosity. They will not get intrigued about it. Engage the students in such a way that they develop a personal central chord within one another and with the activity. Then re-examination of the activity should be possible. If a child is not able to draw theorizations, conclusions, or he is not able to develop hypotheses, give him an opportunity that he can suspend all previous assumptions. He might have certain facts that he might have learned. They may not be held good by this experience. This experience may contradict those assumptions. Give him the opportunity that those assumptions are to be discarded and newer assumptions of newer value have to be used. Come to the next. Meaningful relationships. When you consider students as partners in the process of education, they have to become the owners of this activity. So in the learning process, the teacher models the importance of building better relationships so that knowledge can be integrated. You see, these two things that you see in the two hands of two people get integrated into one, provided we know how to fit them. That's what human life is. Human life is basically forming relationships, relationships with other people. And then exploring comfort zones. This also is very important. You have to understand, my dear friends, and this is very important for all of us as teachers. We all find our comfort zone. We find our niche. We dig into that niche. We grill into it. And then we stay put for years together and then proudly say, I completed my 20 years of teaching. Do you still have something to teach me? Well, you are in your comfort zone, my child. What I taught yesterday does not hold good today. Things have changed. If I make this presentation after 1 week, I will have to add a few new things, which will have been evolved, which will have been developed, which will have been researched by then. The only way to enter into learning, the only way to enter into experiential learning is leave your comfort zone first. I am quite comfortable sitting on my bed with a pillow behind my back, delivering a talk. If I leave this and get up and start explaining, you might ask me, sir, which is your favorite subject? Could you demonstrate an activity on that? That is leaving my comfort zone. I will have to then come out of my comfort zone of lecturing and demonstrating an experiential activity in front of my children. I would like you to come out those preconceived notions, leave the comfort zone. Not only the teachers, but even the students will have to come out of their comfort zones, because the process of learning transforms everything. It transforms first your concepts, then your relationships, then your estimation of your own self, then your knowledge of the whole world. Now, as such, there are many paths to go. We have this way, we have that way, and we have another way also. Which way should we choose? There are two basic assumptions here. People will always learn from the experiences that they have today, and they will also learn from books and concepts. This is one particular assumption. And I hold very much to this assumption, that people do not only learn from concepts, they do not only learn from books, they learn, but at the same time they learn from here and now experience also. The second assumption is all people learn differently. They all learn according to their preferred learning style. If the learner is a visual learner, he learns by seeing. If he is an auditory learner, he learns by listening. If his preferred style is touching things, he learns by touching. That's where experiential learning will come in. If he is a kinesthetic learner, he learns by moving his large muscles of the body. I believe in both these assumptions. Assumption number two, that different people have their own preferred learning styles, therefore the experience to be provided to him in his own learning style. And number one, it's not only books and knowledge that will give him the learning, but it's only the experience which happens right now that also gives him knowledge. The core of this whole model is the learning cycle that you saw in that video. How experience is translated finally into a concept. And this concept serves us as a guide, and it helps us to experience use new choices as our experience. People are always taught that they learn through experience. And the process is conceived, there it was shown as a 5-stage circle. I see it as a 4-stage circle. Immediate and concrete experience, this is the basis for everything. Provide the child with an experience. Provide the child with an experience that is related to the content. The experience should be provided now and here, and the experience should be concrete. Number two, let him observe and let him reflect on the experience. Number three, let him draw his observations and his reflections that he has accumulated. Let him distill those, bring out the essential elements from all those accumulations into the form of a theory or a concept. The theory of the concept may be howsoever trivial, it may be informal, it may not be conceptual as yet, but whatever the new implications he has, this will lead him to action. Now test these implications, because they will serve as guides to him in his new experience. So the 4-stage cycle will be concrete experience, observation and reflection, assimilation and distilling it into a theory, drawing a hypothesis, and the fourth stage will be testing this hypothesis in new situation. Now let's come to a real activity. You might say that this was all theoretical. We could read it from a book. Where was the need of Professor Andu? He could have sent us the material and not saved upon our time. Now supposing I am to teach students about weather patterns. I am to teach them about deciduous trees. I am to teach about water erosion. I took these examples from geography lessons or social science lessons. Why shouldn't they go out? Why shouldn't they move out of the classroom and look at a forest and let the teacher talk about the deciduous trees in a small forest? Let him talk about various weather patterns as they are walking through the forest and going towards a river, and let them understand what soil erosion is and what the various stages of a river are. Why can't we teach addition and multiplication of mathematics by observing plant growth and the reproduction of plants? Last time I told you we gave a seed to a child and asked him to germinate it at home. No need. Take them today. On a Monday morning, take them out into the garden and let them count the number of plants that they see. And take them after 4 days or 5 days and let them count now. Have they doubled? Have they tripled? Have they grown less? Or have they increased in number? Explain the process of reproduction also. And at the same time, teach them how to add and how to multiply. We have 5 flower beds on our side, and we must have another 5 on the other side. Now, if we multiply 5 by 2, it makes 10. So they are realizing that addition is the same thing as multiplication. Only difference is repetitive addition leads to multiplication. Now, you can teach grammar with word games, where each student represents a different part of a speech. A student is a noun, a student is a pronoun, another student is a preposition, another student is an adjective, another student is an adverb. And you give them the words and they have to choose these words and put themselves in the right order so that they make a sentence. They make a sentence in the form of, you can say S-O-V, subject, object, verb. Or you can say S-V-O, subject, verb, object. So the patterns of sentences can also be done as an activity. These are all activities for junior children. Now the 4 different abilities that we all know. If you have to be an effective learner, you have to have a CE, concrete experience. If you want to reflect on that experience and think about that experience, that should be your 2nd stage. Then your 3rd stage, which may appear a little theoretical to you, is once you had the experience, you have reflected on that experience. Now start asking yourself, what did I learn? What do I draw from that experience? What are my concepts that I have learned? These concepts will not be concepts as yet. They will be only assumptions, I said, hypotheses, I said, abstractions. And now whatever you have learned, right or wrong, go and actively involve yourself in an experimentation and try it out. Let's look at another example. Can you teach physics while playing sports and measuring the force applied or distance possible? We have the IPL nowadays. Why do we talk of bowlers bowling at 140? Why do we talk of bowlers bowling at 156? There was one ball in this IPL. You must find out who bowled that. He bowled at a speed of 156. Why do we say that the pitches are double-paced? Why do we say that the ball swings, changes its course? Can't physics be taught? Why do we say that the batsman plays quite straight because his bat is inclined at an angle of 40 degrees? Or why do we say that he has hit the ball without using much of a force and yet the ball has gone outside the boundary for a 6? So the 3rd law of motion, to every action there is equal and opposite reaction. The systematic running of a fast bowler, the spin and turn, the positioning of the fielders at various places and the angles they make to the batsman. This is all physics. Why can't we teach history by performing and conducting debates in the classes? Even battle scenes can be enacted, or some important events of history. They can be short sketches, short plays on those scenes. Why can't we hold discussions, group presentations done by the children when they hold reading discussions, when they are group-led presentations, you are developing in them more of understanding and more of critical thinking. Well, these are the activities. I'm not talking of something very big to be done. Depending on the school, as it starts growing, the activities will multiply and you will have a vast storehouse of activities. I will look at experiential learning in another aspect now. Provide an experience. Let the children come together in a group. Let them share what they experienced. This is wonderful. If you make them talk about the experience, well, then others are also sharing knowledge about that experience. Each one of them had possibly the same experience. Then each one of them may be giving his own interpretation. They are looking at the process of the experience. I did this, I went there, then something like this happened. And as it happened, it happens because of this. He draws a conclusion. That's his generalization. His generalization is the conclusion that he draws from his experience, from his sharing of information about that experience, his reflection on that experience, and studying the process. And now that he is ready with a generalized theory, with a hypothesis, with an assumption, he goes and applies it. The whole cycle has to be completed for experiential learning. If you provide him an experience of hands-on learning, you must not feel happy that I have done what I had to do. Make him reflect on that in a group. Make him process this information. Make him generalize. And when he generalizes, tell him, come on, I'm going to give you another experience now where you will use the information that you have gathered so far and try the next activity. Then only experiential learning becomes complete. In the school where I read, I was in class 6th when I was thrown into a lake. I was virtually thrown. We had to all jump from a bridge into the lake. The height was not more than 10 to 15 feet. And then we had to swim across the Dal Lake in Srinagar, 26 miles. Then the gates would be thrown open where we would come into the DALIMSS river. And we had to swim against the current. And we would be picked up either by the boats if we were too tired. We would be given a lot of support, lot of help and encouragement. We would be given loaves of bread. And those of us who would complete it would be picked up at the gates and would receive a certificate. Now, this was an experience in working together. This was an experience in leadership. This was an experience in perseverance. This was an experience in bearing. This was an experience in showing courage. There was another activity that we had to undertake when we were in class 9. We had to go for 3 days and 3 nights to Mahadev Peak, which is supposed to be a very revered kind of a shrine. But I haven't seen any shrine there except a peak. We would climb it for 3 days and 3 nights, and we had no teachers with us. We had only 2 of us, me and my friend. We made buddies. We had similarly, every child in the class had a friend with him, and 2 of them were buddies. 5 buddies would make a team of 10, and the 10 had a group leader in a student. And there were similarly, say we were 90 in 3 sections, 90 of us had 90 group leaders, and then we had 1 team leader. He would be. The teachers would stay at the base camp. They would provide us all support and materials, give us a pat on the back and send us up. What were we learning? We were learning working together, helping one another. And sometimes you must have seen in that movie, it was named like a student, something called the Student of the Year. You must have all seen that movie, Student of the Year. Perhaps it's part 1 and part 2. The students are sent onto a scavenger hunt. They have to search for something for which a cue is given to them. When they find that thing gives them the cue to the other thing. And they start searching for the other thing. That's a scavenger hunt game. You can organize a scavenger hunt game. You can organize a hike. You can organize a tour, because these activities, especially if they are related to school subjects, then you are building up in your children the qualities of teamwork and qualities of leadership. This is another. Hiking. When children go for this hiking, it develops in them the quality to persevere. Nobody can say, enough is enough, sir. I am coming back, sir. I am getting tired, sir. I cannot go beyond this. I am afraid. You bring him down. You give him a pat on the back, give him a drink and tell him, go ahead. You are the best among all. And I'm sure if you start now, you are going to reach the top. That is perseverance. In hour of difficulty, in hour of trials and tribulations, you have to continue doing. Hiking can be one. Water rafting can be another. Expeditions like water rafting, sports trips can be another. Navigation and exploration can be another. Let the students be in charge of their own directions. Give them the morale. For a certain amount of time, they are their own leaders. Let them do this. As they do this activity, you will see character developing. You will see courage developing. You will see confidence developing. You will see them becoming all one and love you together. How do we start this? Where do I start in an experiential learning? Before starting on an experiential learning activity, whether outdoors or indoors, most of the experiential learning can be done outdoors, but 100% of them can be done indoors. Maybe for specific development and traits of character, you have to take them outdoors, but majority of activities on the subjects can be done indoors also. Please set a goal for yourself. What is the purpose of this activity? Why am I going to give them this experience? Once you have chosen the activity, it may require an indoor activity or an outdoor activity. What will be the opportunities for the children now to learn by hands-on doing, by learning by doing? What will be the opportunities? Think of those opportunities. If it does not provide that opportunity, it is not experiential learning at all. Then request your principals and your administrators for their permission. They may not allow you. They may feel that the activity chosen by you is sometimes too dangerous, or sometimes may not be even approved of by the parents. So seek their permission. It is better to consult a matured, responsible person. Then you need more freedom with activities on which you can experiment, but that you can have after school. Because during the school, you may not get freedom to experiment. You have to rush through the curriculum also. You have to engage yourself in the completion of the syllabi also. And activity sometimes on a difficult concept can also be taken up. But if you feel that your children are really learning more through experiential learning, then devote half an hour more extra with them. My dear children, before you go home, I want to meet you in the lawns for half an hour. Meet them. Do an after-school program for them that will be meeting every Sunday, will be meeting every Saturday for half an hour, every Monday for half an hour. This after-school program can be used for learning through experiential activity or experiences. That brings me to the end of it. I'll stop sharing